Welcome, everybody, to the Fanmouth Daily Fantasy Baseball Breakdown for Tuesday, June the 3rd. I'm Joe Marsh, joined today by Jeff Collins and Dave Del Grande. How you fellas doing?
Hey, how's it going?
I'm doing great.
All right. Looks like we got a really good slate of games today, 15 games on the slate. We'll go through all the positions. We'll tell you who we like as far as our picks. We'll give you some advice and help you build your lineup. Starting with pitcher, I'm going to defer to Jeff today. Jeff, what do you think at pitcher today?
No pressure, huh? I think there are a ton of options. What I did today, it's funny that you like come to me and need advice from me, but I seriously just made sure I had stacked hitters and kind of saw what pitchers fit in there, and I really liked the way my lineup looked with Lincecum and Wheeler, both good options. I've got a list of probably 6 or 7 pitchers that I am considering today, where usually it's like 1.5 to 3. So. Today, though, I feel comfortable with a lot of guys that are in good spots to get strikeouts. Lincecum pretty much always is. Cincinnati isn't hitting very well. Zach Wheeler faces the Cubs. If the wind's blowing, especially if the wind's blowing in there, which it usually is, that's going to be a great spot for him. Then you got guys like Garrett Cole and Dan Herron who are a little more expensive, but Garrett Cole's playing San Diego. Gets a quality start pretty much every time, and you get bonus points for quality starts. And Dan Herron against the White Sox. I already talked about yesterday how the White Sox lead the league in strikeouts. So it's like you've got plenty of options there. And to go with a guy like Garrett Cole and Dan Herron over Tim Lincecum and Zach Wheeler, your lineup's going to look a lot worse. And I'm not sure you're getting enough added value to go with those guys. I do think there's slightly better options, but especially in the case of Dan Herron, I think he's a little overpriced. Garrett Cole, I think, is the best option overall, the safest option, but plenty of options today.
Yeah, it's funny because I agree. I think there's a few good options. I don't know if there's necessarily any great options, but I would also rather save some money and spend elsewhere. I think there's a ton of outfield options. There's some great first base options. There's a lot of places you can spend on the infield. However, I didn't come up with any of the same pitchers, really. I think Jaime Garcia is a great play. He's facing the Royals at home. Henderson Alvarez as well, 185 ERA at home, 218 batting average against, and then you look at the Rays hitting 221 on the road. They're pretty cold offensively, averaging about 2.7 runs over their last 15 games. So I think that's a great matchup. And then a couple of risky plays. I'll just go ahead and throw them out there, make the case for the high-risk guys. Colin McHugh, a lot of upside. He struck out 7 at least in 5 of his 7 starts. But he is facing the Angels, who are a good offense. However, he faced them already, struck out 7, only gave up 4 hits. So you do risk running into the Angels' offense there, but there is a big payoff there with his ability to strike out hitters. And then the huge risk of the day is Jorge De La Rosa. He's pitched actually great at Coors Field, 249 ERA, 200 batting average against. You look at Arizona, they're a very good offensive, not very good, they're a much better offensive team at home, but they only hit 234 on the road. And then they're facing Anderson, who they should beat up. Rockies are averaging 6.75 runs per game at home, so I know Dave likes to look at a guy with a good shot to get a win. Obviously, you look at a guy pitching in Coors, you're not going to love it. I think it's a high risk, but that could pay off. Dave, what do you think of pitcher?
Well, you guys have touched on a lot of options. I do not think it's a good day for pitchers today. I don't like there are no real heavyweights going, first off. And secondly, I'm someone who likes the lightweight guys. 3 of my guys are pitching today, Anderson, Buchanan, and McHugh, all guys who I've had at least once and some of them multiple times, but I don't like any of them today. And so I'm looking at a lot of mid-price guys. Some of them, their prices are just way too high for how good they are. But I'm kind of stuck sorting between them. I think Jaime Garcia is the hottest pitcher going today. Facing Kansas City, I think he's the standout. But his price, it's a little higher than I would like to pay. And then there's Jordan Zimmerman. He's a guy who has not necessarily pitched that great this year, but he's at home facing a Philadelphia team that's not hitting well. I really like that matchup as well. So I kind of agree with Jeff's idea that today's not a day to be spending on mediocre pitchers like Garcia and Zimmerman for the most part. But I don't know. I mean, for example, we've talked about Lincecum. Man, I would stay away from him today. He's a terrible pitcher on the road, and Cincinnati has not been hitting well. But man, I don't trust Lincecum on the road. I think he could get bombed in this game, big in a pitcher's park here. So I can't find ways to save money. If I did, I would. I do kind of like Alvarez a little bit, but I'm going to go with Garcia and Zimmerman. It's going to cost me a hitter or two, which I don't like because I think today's a good hitting day. But that's the decision that I've made.
Hey, let me go ahead, Joe, but let me jump in there after you.
Yeah, no worries. I was going to say today may be the day to build your lineup offensively first, and then see what you have left at pitcher, and then go from there because I think there are some great offensive options. Jeff, you want to defend your Lincecum pick?
Well, not just that. A few things. Lincecum actually has been okay on the road so far this year, especially when you're looking at it from a fantasy perspective, and you need a guy with strikeouts. Lincecum's always going to have the strikeouts. And then we talked about specifically the matchup. Cincinnati, especially with Votto on the DL. I mean, they're not intimidating at all.
I believe they're the coldest team. I mean, they're in the bottom three offensive categories over the last month.
Horrible hitting team right now. A couple other things, because you talked about guys that were initially on my list, but I just wanted to discuss why I scratched them off of my list. Jaime Garcia, the problem is the strikeouts aren't going to be there for him, I think, because Kansas City actually doesn't strike out a ton. So that would be the one negative with him there. And then you mentioned, De La Rosa and Arizona's splits at home versus the road. You have to throw that out the window when they're going to Coors Field. If a team struggles on the road and goes to Coors Field, you need to ignore that, in my opinion. I think that going to Coors Field is going to be better than hitting in Arizona.
That's it? That's all you got? All right.
What else do you want to hear?
All right.
Seriously, that's all you got?
We'll move over to catcher, because catcher actually couple of my favorite plays. I think one of my, I think you can go, there's a great high-end play and a great punt play. Obviously, the great high-end play, I thought we would be all across the board on this, is, for me, Devin Mesoraco. 8 home runs in 74 at-bats against right-handers, 3 homers and 26 at-bats at home. You look at Lincecum, we talked about 4.91 ERA on the road, 2.94 average to lefties. I think he's a standout play at catcher. If you feel like punting the position today, look at Chris Jimenez of the Rangers. He's hit well. He's only played a small amount, but he's hitting .417 against righties. If he's in the lineup, I think he's a great punt play. Dave, what do you think of catcher? You agree with me on Mesoraco, right?
Gee, how'd you know? Yes, I do. I think there are several good catching options among the higher-priced guys. But I do think he stands out. I like, again, I like going against Lincecum on the road. You mentioned all the pertinent numbers, except for the 168 whip on the road, which is the worst of all pitchers going today. And Mesoraco's a big-time hitter. I think he's got the highest OPS among all the catchers going against right-handers. So the numbers seem to point to him. I do understand the negative there. Jeff has pointed it out, and it's certainly true that Cincinnati just has not been hitting the ball lately very well. So let's see them go back home in their ballpark and see if that changes things. And so I'm willing to go with him today.
All right, Jeff, you did not like Mesoraco. What do you think of today?
I never said I don't.
Or you didn't have him on your rankings. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's just not the best option today. Mesoraco is a fine option, but Evan Gattis is the same price, and I think he has a better chance to hit a home run today. He's going against Erasmo Ramirez, who's given up a home run every single start so far this year. So it was between him and Justin Upton for my home run pick. I think I'm leaning towards Justin Upton, but I think that those right-handed power bats are in a really good spot today. So that would be why I went with Gattis instead. But then you've got, John Jaso is still really underpriced on Fanmouth. 5,900 if he's in the lineup today, which I assume he will be against the Yankees here. Then 5,900 that saves you a ton of money.
Yeah, I think Jaso and Jimenez are good low-end picks today. First base is pretty loaded today. Jeff, what are you thinking?
Well, I talked about liking Arizona going into Coors Field, and I've got my notes all written out today, and the note I put next to Paul Goldschmidt was Coors Field. That's it. There's not. I mean, really, what else do you need to know? He's a big-time power hitter that gets the ball up, that can get the ball up in the air, and really crushes lefties over his career power-wise. So it's a really good spot for him. And another guy I considered for my home run pick, but as of right now, decided that he finished second.
Dave, what do you think?
Well, my notes say the same thing as Jeff say, except that it says it next to Morneau's name. Morneau's one of these hitters who feasts on bad pitching, feasts on non-clutch situations. This is a game where, I think Colorado has way the best of the pitching matchup in this game. This could be one of those 8-1 games where Morneau hits the home run in the 8th inning, like he's done so many times. And so he's going to be my play. He's going to be my home run pick for the day as well. But he'll be my play at first base.
So you're endorsing my De La Rosa pick, right? If the D-backs are only going to score one?
That was in the 8th inning, yes.
Oh, okay.
You only got a partial score on that game. But no, I do like that play. I mean, Arizona's got a good hitting team, and like Jeff said, a good hitting team. I'd call them an above-average hitting team. You go to Coors Field with an above-average hitting team. I don't necessarily want a pitcher going against that. But De La Rosa has been pitching well.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm with you guys at first base. I had a hard time picking between four. The two you mentioned, Morneau's great at home. Goldie, obviously. I like Brandon Moss, always against a righty. The guy I ended up going with is Adrian Gonzalez. You look at it, he's really good against righties, 307 with 11 home runs against right-handers, facing Noesi, who I think is a guy we need to attack tonight. He's got a 6.75 ERA on the road. He's given up 6 home runs and 97 at-bats to lefties. I think Gonzalez would be a good home run pick today. I think Goldie's a good home run pick today. Neither one are my home run pick, but those are excellent plays. And then moving over to second base, a lot of time when there's a righty on the mound, I like Gonzalez. I also like D. Gordon, hitting 306 versus righties. They've got Tyler Flowers behind the plate. You look at him, he's given up the 3rd most stolen bases. So if Gordon can get on, I think he's got a chance to run. And then another place we got to look, Neil Walker. The Pirates were great last night. I think we were all on them a bit. And then you look at this guy, Jesse Hahn. The good news is he's got a 2.20 ERA this season. The bad news is that was in Double-A. He's going straight from Double-A to the majors. Walker 13A has of his 10 home runs on the left side. I think Jesse Hahn's a guy we can pick on as well. Jeff, what do you think?
I like the D. Gordon pick. I think that would be the direction I go. You talked about Tyler Flowers, and even if Nieto is the guy that ends up catching, which, there's probably a 50-50 chance that he does, he's even worse. He throws out, 1 out of 5 guys, and then Tyler Flowers is 1 out of 4. I mean...
Yeah, Nieto throws a changeup to second base.
And then specifically, Noesi also gives up a bunch of stolen bases. I think 6 guys have stolen off of him, and none have been caught. So it's a really good spot for D. Gordon. And Dodgers in general, like you said, are going to be a good way to go today against Noesi, one of the worst pitchers in the league. I think he's played for like 3 teams already this early in the season, right? Is that him?
I think he was with the Mariners already, right?
I think he's been with like the Rangers and then another team, and this is his 3rd team.
He's one of the worst pitchers going tonight.
Yeah,
so
I don't understand it. Why do you keep trading for such a bad pitcher? It doesn't make any sense.
Some teams just need arms. I mean, you look at Texas, they've got Joel Saunders going. You look at the Padres, they're calling up a guy out of Double-A. I mean, sometimes you just need an arm to show up,
I guess, man.
Dave?
And I agree with what you guys are saying. I think there's a lot of great hitting options tonight because there are a lot of bad pitchers pitching. I mean, you haven't even mentioned really Anderson and Buchanan, and House. I mean, these are 3 guys on any normal day you'd be fighting to go up against them. But today, with you mentioned Noesi pitching, Saunders pitching, Hahn pitching. I mean, you got a lot of different ways to go. I'm going to go one of these ways. That's I do like playing Dodgers tonight against Noesi. The Red Sox are facing House tonight, and Pedroia, a big right-handed hitter. House hasn't gotten righties or lefties out so far this year in a small sample size. I think he's an outstanding play. High-priced second baseman, but power guy who I think can do some damage tonight. So he'll be my choice at second base.
Yeah, Dave, that's funny that you say that. I mean, talk about, there's a ton of pitchers to attack. Like I said, there was 4 first basemen at least that I liked, And the outfield, man, I kept going back and forth, like, oh, I need this guy and this guy and this guy. I only had 3 high-priced slots, I couldn't fit everybody in that I liked. I think, like you said, there's a ton of pitchers to attack. So yeah.
I will say this, and my experience in baseball tells me that when I know nothing about Hahn, in particular, but when the team brings a guy straight up from Double A, they're usually doing it because the guy is ready. And because they think he's a standout. Usually if you're bringing up, if a guy gets hurt, you need an emergency starter, 19 times out of 20, that guy's coming from AAA. He's only coming up to make a couple starts. He's filling in for a guy who's hurt. When you bring a guy up from AA, very few teams are going to take a guy like that and just throw him out there for a couple of starts and then send him back down. You can't do anything worse for a young guy's confidence. So I would think that if the Padres are bringing this guy up straight from AA, it's because they think this guy's here to stay. And he might be a little better than you think. Well, again, that's just an educated guess on my part.
Yeah, I was reading about him. I mean, he's not a big strikeout guy, but he does throw heat. He can hit 100. But he's just a guy. I guess he's kind of struggled with injuries in his career. He's already had a Tommy John. Still, I think that it's still a big jump to make in his first start. I'd like to attack him at least a little bit.
That's where Dave's right though. That's where all the blue chip prospects. Madison Bumgarner. He came from AA straight to the majors. He didn't go to AAA, I believe. Buster Posey, same thing. It's like if you're a big prospect, you don't go to AAA,
minors, right?
What's that?
Those guys were through the minors quick though, right? Buster shot right up through the minors, right?
Yeah, but it's the principle of it is that if you're, there's no point to go to AAA if you're ready for the majors. So I absolutely agree with Dave.
Okay, moving over to third base. Who do you like, Jeff?
Evan Longoria. Another reason I scratched Alvarez off my list is the BVP against a couple of the hitters there in Tampa Bay, especially Evan Longoria, 6 for 10 with 3 home runs against Alvarez. So I like the spot that he's in. Longoria hasn't shown a ton of power this year, which is the biggest disappointment and the one thing that made me consider not going that direction. But you have to love this BVP, and you have to look at this position as a whole and realize that there's not a complete standout here. There's a couple guys worth considering, like the Pablo Sandovals and the Pedro Alvarez's, but there's no shoe-in like a D. Gordon or something. So Evan Longoria, I'll roll the dice with the BVP today.
All right, Dave?
I do think there's a couple standouts at this position, and you mentioned one of them, and I don't know how you go against Sandoval. His price has crept up, no doubt about it, but he's as hot a hitter as there is out there. Bailey, for a huge sample size now, I've been pitching all year, 380 batting average against left-handers. I mean, that's rare for a guy who's made 11 or 12 starts already. He's given up some power to lefties. Sandoval's hitting the ball as well as anybody out there. I like David Wright tonight against Buchanan. Another hot hitter, but man, I can't go against Sandoval given his price and everything else associated with him.
Yeah, I like Alvarez as well. He's hit 8 of his 10 home runs against right-handers this season. Obviously, they're in San Diego, so it makes it a bit riskier. There's one guy I really like. When I'm looking at splits, if I see a guy who hits well against righties and hits well at home versus a pitcher who struggles on the road and gives up and struggles against righties, that's something I really like to see. That guy for me is Aviles. Hits good splits against righties, also hits 333 against home. And then you have Peavy, who hasn't been great this year, has struggled on the road, 5.01 ERA on the road, gives up a 319 batting average to righties. I think he's a very solid cheap play today as well. Moving over to shortstop. Finally, we get to talk about, it's been a while since we've had Tulowitzki at home, right? Rockies they've been on the road for 9 games. They had a day off yesterday, and they're facing a weak pitcher. So I think today's a day to fire them up. I think they're going to be, happy to be back at home, get some of that home cooking. You look at Tulowitzki hitting 521 at home this season, and then your boy Anderson giving up a 333 average to righties. I think Tulowitzki, sort of a no-brain play. Obviously, if you can't afford him, you may have to look elsewhere, but it might be one spot you want to spend, especially if you're going cheap at pitcher. Jeff, what do you think?
I think that he's in a slump right now, and you'd expect him to hit better at home, and that's obvious. But one for his last, I think 16 is what he's done. I mean, he's been really bad on the road, so that I don't know that Coors Field can fix all of that. And I think that he is great play. If you throw all the salaries out the window, but he is 2K more than the next guy, and Hanley Ramirez is a pretty solid option today. I mean, more than a solid option. He's a good option today. Going against Nuesu. We already talked about that. So if you can save 2K and go to Hanley Ramirez, this is the day to do it, in my opinion. I don't think that Coors Field can fix everything. I think it gets overhyped a lot. And I understand that I truly believe that Tulowitzki's maybe the best hitter in the league this year, but not over the last couple of weeks, man. And I don't know that it's only because that he's been on the road.
All right, Dave, what do you think?
Well, certainly tonight we're going to test that theory because you're right. I mean, there's no colder hitter right now than Tulowitzki, and yet, you look at. I mean, there was probably no hotter hitter when they left home and they went on the road trip. I mean, what's the guy batting, like 500 at home and like
521,
150 at 150 on the road? I mean, it's amazing. I mean, it's hard to give the ballpark that kind of credit, but are they stealing signs there? I mean, I don't know what's going on there.
That's been the suspicion,
right? And it's and if that's the case, then I think a guy who was one for his last 16 or whatever could all of a sudden go 4 for 5 tonight and hit a couple of home runs. I do agree, though, that Ramirez has got a great matchup. I think Ramirez is a very strong play tonight, and I think there are others. I think Bogaerts also is a guy, even lesser price, who gets a nice matchup tonight against House. I think if you got the money to spend, I would go with Tulowitzki. You want to save a little, go with Ramirez. You want to save a lot, then drop down to Bogaerts. But I would recommend putting Tulowitzki in there if you could afford it.
All right, Jeff. What do you think? You still not sold on him?
With Tulo?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that in a slump like this, I would rather see how he plays the first game. He's going to be the same price tomorrow, so if he does well today, then maybe I'll start him tomorrow. But today, there's no point in playing him over Hanley Ramirez and paying 2K more to do it.
Fair enough. Moving to the outfield, Dave, what do you got?
Wow, where do you start? This is, embarrassment of riches tonight in the outfield. A list has to start with Nelson Cruz when they face a left-handed pitcher, and so he's in there. We've talked about Noesi pitching tonight against the Dodgers. Puig, I think has to be in there as well. But then, you've probably run out of money at this point. But, Jeff mentioned Upton before. He's a guy certainly worth considering. I think you could go any of 3 ways with the Giants outfielders against Bailey. I would go with Pagan there and save a little bit of money, get a high average guy. You could go with any of the Colorado guys, in a very good matchup where I think they're going to score a lot of runs tonight. So it's I didn't even mention McCutcheon against this, this high school guy that you're talking about them that they're promoting to pitch. So I mean, there's, and even Bruce against Lincecum is a good matchup. So I would say you got to start with Cruz for sure. Probably Puig as a second guy, and then determine for yourself: are you out of money? Do you need to go to a level like a Pagan, Bruce, a slightly lesser guy, or can you afford to go with Upton or Gonzalez or a real heavyweight like that? But there's many ways you can go in the outfield tonight.
Jeff, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Dave talked about the 3 big guys for me: Nelson Cruz, Yasiel Puig going up against Abreu. It's like the Cuban battle. I always like the side stories, and I think that this. When you looked at Adrian Beltre and Arenado when the Rangers went to Coors Field about a month ago, you could see like that rivalry and how Beltre is Arenado's like role model, like his mentor type guy, and Arenado had a really good series, a really good first game, and then Beltre came back the next game and jacked a home run. It's like a back and forth battle, and I could see this happening with Abreu and Puig in this series, where yesterday Abreu hits a home run, today Puig hits a home run. It's a back and forth. Obviously, it's baseball, and it's you're relying on number one getting pitched to when you're a guy like Yasiel Puig. So there's things out of your control. But I think it's a good place for Puig to be in, especially we talked about Noesi being the matchup there. Justin Upton, that's going to be my home run pick, I'm pretty sure, unless I switch to Goldschmidt last second. But this guy going up against a pitcher that gives up at least one home run every single game, you really got to like that. I mean, the fly ball to ground ball ratio is one thing you got to look at when you're trying to select a guy that's going to hit a home run. Like, who am I to give advice in last place right now? But yeah, I really like the spot that Upton's in. And then one more guy I'll give you. I mean, there's plenty of outfield options. I think I'm going to roll with 4 today. But Billy Hamilton's another guy. Giants catchers can't throw guys out. Tim Lincecum's one of the worst historically at holding runners on. The last 2 years, 50 guys have tried to steal on him. 4 guys got caught. So Lincecum, I mean, I remember a couple years back, Lincecum just wouldn't even look over at the runner. He would just throw the ball and like watch him take off to second and be like, I can't deal with that. I'm not going to worry about that. So I could see that happening again where Billy Hamilton gets multiple steals today. We've seen that with D. Gordon when he'll steal second, steal third, and then all of a sudden you've got yourself, in the first inning you've got like 15 points. But so Billy Hamilton's a nice sneaky play at a little cheaper than those other guys we've talked about.
Yeah, good stuff there. A lot of stuff there, and we still haven't even mentioned a few guys. George Springer we haven't talked about. He's red hot. Giancarlo Stanton we haven't talked about. He's another solid home run pick. Carlos Gonzalez. I'm with you guys on Puig. I'm with you guys on Cruz. I think Cruz that's my home run pick today. You look at Saunders, 4.15 ERA on the road, allowing a 3.13 batting average to righties. Cruz hits 4.05 against lefties. He's got 4 homers and 37 at bats. I think Dickerson, if you get to an outfield place and you need to save money, Dickerson's the way to go. 379 at home, hitting 342, 7 home runs against righties. And then Josh Harrison, again, very cheap option. I think he's a good play, 11 for his last 31. He's hit all 4 of his home runs against righties this season. But, yeah, like you said, there's tons of places you can go in the outfield. I'm usually on steals. I wasn't on Billy Hamilton. That's a great call there by Jeff. But, yeah, I mean, outfield is the place to spend money. So, and that's going to lead into my final word, which is typically I start with my pitcher, build through the infield to the outfield. I'll probably build my team in reverse. I'll make sure I get the outfielders that I want because there's in the infield at catcher, at second base, and at third base, there's high price and low price options that I want. So I may have to spend a lot on the outfield. I may have to go with the lower end guys on the infield. I think Aviles and Neil Walker are great places to save money. Check the catching lineups. Mesoraco, I think, is a great play if you've got the money. If not, keep an eye on Jimenez in Texas. If he's catching, I think he's a great play. And then I'll see what I have left over and decide what I want to do from there with pitcher. I think Henderson Alvarez probably the best low-end play tonight, and then maybe some combination of De La Rosa or McHugh. Jeff, final word?
Final word would be, I don't say this often, but you can save on the pitcher position today and really make it a focus to build your lineup the way that makes most sense. So, and by that I mean the guys that are the best options. So, don't be afraid to spend a lot. In my outfield, you can spend seriously $40K on the outfield if you want today. I would go on 4 different outfielders, but don't hold back in that. Go after guys that are going to hit home runs today. I think there's some really good BVP numbers. Evan Longoria, I don't think I even mentioned Desmond Jennings, but he has really good BVP also. So lots of different directions go in the field, and the pitchers, there's just no one that stands out. The best option, the safest option, if you want to stay safe, is Garrett Cole, but he's not that much above the next guys. So really build your lineup first, and then figure out pitcher after that.
Dave, final word.
Yeah, now see, I'm my thinking is the opposite of Jeff usually in regards to pitching, and it remains the opposite today. I'm the one who focuses on low-priced pitchers. I'll gladly give you a Buchanan and an Anderson at home against a team that doesn't hit well, and I've done that before. I did this with McHugh a couple of times. Unfortunately, these guys have bad matchups today, and so I can't be in a situation where I've spent all my money and I got to come back and put these guys in my lineup. So today I feel almost forced to start off with some pitchers, find the matchups that I like, knowing that you're not going to have to spend 18, 19,000 to get these guys. And this is where I'll probably put Garcia and Zimmerman in my lineup. Modest price guys, slightly, a little higher than I want them to be. Get them in there, knowing that there are a half dozen, maybe 8 different pitchers I would like to attack tonight. And when there's that kind of quantity, then you can check the lineups. You can get a lot of cheap price guys, especially in the infield. So, I would definitely put Nelson Cruz in my lineup in the outfield. I'm going to try to get Tulowitzki in there, but other than that, I'll be perfectly happy going with lower priced, hitters at several of the positions.
And Dave, it's all relative too. I mean, when I talk about low price pitchers, I'm talking about guys in the 12K range, and when you talk about low price pitchers, you're talking about 6K guys.
Exactly.
Your mid range guys are 12. So I mean, I see what you're saying, but I know we're saying different words, but I think we do kind of agree today. You need a guy in that 12 to 15K range. You can settle on that.
Yeah.
You feel like you're having to spend a little more. I'm spending a little less. But
exactly, that's the thing. As I've talked about a couple of times here, I feel like I'm overpaying for pitchers today because you're right. I see guys in the 13, 14 range where guys who aren't that good. Zimmerman's not having that good a season. I hate to pay that kind of price just to get a good matchup against Philadelphia, but the equivalent just isn't there today. You don't have Anderson pitching at home against Philadelphia and paying $6,000. You got Zimmerman, at double the price and more, facing Philadelphia. But that's what that's the cards we're dealt with today. So that's where I'm going to go, knowing that I'm still going to, like I said, if you look at the lineups today, you're going to find probably against every one of these 8 pitchers that I'm talking about, one low-priced guy where you would say, on a normal day I wouldn't stoop to this level, but today against this pitcher in this situation, I like him, and that's all you need.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Jeff a bit on that. I think because there's so many so-so pitchers, I think you kind of grab a couple you can afford, and it's not going to be that much worse than getting the higher end guys. That wraps it up for today. Any more final words, guys? No?
Nope.
All right. We will be back tomorrow. In the meantime, you can follow us on Twitter at PlayFanmouth. You can check out how we've ranked the players at blog.fanmouth.com. Thank you very much.